that kind of leads into one of the last questions I had for you was throughout 2020, I mean, everything that 2020's encompassed, what have you learned about yourself and or what have you learned in general?
Yeah. I mean, 2020 in a lot of ways has been a microcosm of the last 20 years. For my wife and I, we kind of laugh the family mantra that my wife and I have been operating with for the past 15 years. It's an old African proverb, which is leap and the net will appear.
Mm.
And which again, to me, it's all about faith, and it's about trust, and it's about courage. It's not about knowing. It's not about knowing. It has nothing to do with knowing what's going to happen. It's knowing that whatever happens, we're going to be able to deal with. And it might not be the way that we want to deal with it, but we're going to be able to deal with it, and we're going to be fine. And I think 2020 again is just given me individually, us as a family, but I think it's given us as a planet an opportunity um, to deal with adversity, and to have to deal with um, resilience, and to ask ourselves if we take away a world in which we thought was somewhat predictable, even though it wasn't, if we take that away, who are we? And this is a question all of us are asking right now. Who are you in this pandemic? How have you responded to this pandemic? That is more revealing about your true character than anything else. And I don't mean that to be like as an insult to people, but if someone has really emotionally struggled, or if you've been in denial of this pandemic and you're spending most of your time asking, why is this happening? Instead of being responsive to what is happening, it's just revealing. And it goes, oh, wow, I don't do very well with the unknown. Well, that's great to know. But guess what? That's your life. Life is nothing but the unknown. So can we take steps in embracing that unknown? And instead of wasting time asking why, um, how quickly can we come back to yes and, which is this is happening and what am I going to do about it?
Mhm.
And so that's what, and so that's, it's the exact same idea I teach to athletes. The more quickly you can let go of what happened and come back to what is happening and be responsive to it, that's what mental toughness is.
Mm.
So we just gave up a lucky goal. Yes, and that happened. And what are you going to do about it? The referee is horrible. Yes, yes, he or she is. And what are you going to do about it? There's only 5 minutes left in the game and we're losing. Yeah, right. That's great. And what are you going to do about it? The more you spend time thinking about the why or the how, the less time you spend in the actual moment of doing, And so there's a great, you know, uh, Peter Block wrote a book called The Answer to How is Yes.
Mm.
And that ends up being one of my chapters as well, right? Most of us go through life not doing something because we ask ourselves, how could that ever happen? Or how would that happen? So we don't even give ourselves permission to try to make it happen. So the question of how has killed more dreams than any other question in the world, instead of just saying yes to the possibility. So the answer to how is yes. How are we going to get it? I don't know, but let's say yes to it and let's figure it out.
Mm.
Tina Fey, the comedic actress and improv queen, she has a huge background in improvisation. One of her quotes is, "Say yes and then figure it out."
Mm.
Right? Say yes and figure it out. Rumi, who is the famous Sufi poet, one of his lines from one of his famous poems is called "Say yes quickly." Right? Say yes quickly. Whatever you're being confronted with, say yes quickly, because now you're in acceptance of it. The
Yeah.
quicker you say yes, and then Travis Thomas, a wise, wise modern day
Right.
sage, modern sage once said, the answer, I'm sorry, you can't, I'm quoting someone else. He once said, you cannot progress until you say yes. And so we don't get on the other side of adversity until we say yes to it. Because once we say yes to it, we can now move through it
Yeah.
instead of asking why is it happening.